Hey guys, it's Ken Maxfield, the Hide Guy. I am the owner and publisher of the Maxfield Report, and this is our market recap for week ending August the 16th. The big news last week, of course, was the fire at the Tyson facility known as Garden City. Some of you also might refer to it as Finney County. It does have a couple different names. The damage, as we have been told, was pretty substantial over on the material handling / box shop side, but we've also heard reports that apparently this area shared a common wall with the slaughter facility, and when that wall collapsed, it did do a significant amount of damage on the slaughter end of the facility, not to mention a bunch of electrical damage. So the president of Tyson's fresh beef division came out and had made an announcement middle of last week that the prospects of repairing this plant within weeks was probably not possible, and likely talking about months. So that's about 25 to 30,000 animals a day that plant process. So that will be interesting to see how packers deal with that. But as far as it pertains to the hide market, offers last week, as expected, were minimal at best. I believe that packers are entering last week with one of their strongest sold forward positions they've had all year. They're also, in my opinion, holding on to some hides so that when people start taking off towards the middle part of this week, towards the end of this week, to head over to Asia to visit customers before the Shanghai Fair, they had some hides to sell. So that said, the hides that were offered, they were proud of the prices. They were looking for more money. As far as interest, buyers seem to be shying away from the blade from buying. Last week's export report, as we'll talk about, wasn't that large. I don't think the interest this past week was any better than the week prior. So overall, I would say kind of a mixed bag for packers. Yes, they sold hides at their asking price, which was no worse than steady. Several instances where it was incrementally higher. But as far as the number of hides sold, I don't think they sold enough hides to clear their production last week. So again, that's why I said a mixed bag. As far as on the cow side, really no change there. Producers entered the week. It appears that there's plenty of branded cows, native cows for sale. Not as many dairy cows available. Offer list for the most part unchanged. Maybe the guys offering dairy cows opted to try to get a little bit more money just to see what would shake out on that. As far as interest, we're told that it was not very good last week. People just picking around the edges. People trying to bid prices lower. Producers refusing to take any less. But by God, that said, you can't get another nickel on your last sale either. So a bit of a stalemate developed in these cows. There's just simply too many out there for sale. And until that situation cleans up, which I don't think is going to happen very soon, people who have cows are going to continue to struggle. As far as the harvest, a very interesting number last week. Everyone, of course, thought we'd see a lower number with the unfortunate incident at the Tyson plant. But last week's harvest was 651. That compares to 642 the week prior. So fewer plants running and a higher number. And a lot of that is because when that Tyson plant went down, live cattle prices plummeted last week. Box prices went up about $20 a hundredweight. So packers are now looking at margins reported to be somewhere around $300 per head. So they are going to be encouraged to try to push some volume through their plants. The thing they'll have to manage is labor, because unemployment's so low, you cannot push these people too hard at the plant level and have them work all this overtime, because you risk the chances of them saying, see you later, we're going to go somewhere else because we don't want to have to work 48 or 50 hours for the week. So export report came in last week pretty much as expected. Wet salted sales at 350,000. Exports at 470,000 on the wet blue, a meager 21,000 sold, and exported was 93,000 wet blue. A couple of points of interest: the combined sales is the lowest of the year. The wet blue sales are the lowest of the year. The shipments remain decent, and we've been having some decent sales here. And the one argument I've been making with some folks here, if you look at a weekly average for the year, the harvest is around 626,000, so call it 625 for easy math. Your sales have been averaging right around about 560,000 on a weekly basis. That doesn't include the domestic soak, so you put on 25, 30 for that. Remember, there's about 8% of the animals being produced in the United States, in my opinion, that are being rendered right now or sent to the landfill. because of there's just no value to them. So if you take about 8% of the overall harvest, you've got a situation where you've got sales and the harvest pretty well locked up and even. And that's why I think, you're seeing these prices of big packer hides that are kind of going this way. The cowhide prices are hanging here, and that's something to monitor as you go forward here. So going around the globe, our friends from Europe say that, it looks like, I should say some people are starting to think their market's starting to bottom. I've shared with you in previous blogs. I think the European market trails the U.S. market on an average 4 to 6 weeks. We've seen the firmer tone here. I think they're starting to see the firmer tone in some of their better quality hides. Still have a lot of cows for sale. But the good news is, you look at the calendar, vacations will be over here in about 10 days. So these guys will be back, and hopefully we'll see maybe a little bit better interest on hides there. Our friends down in Brazil, no change. You've got pressure on fresh prices, they're drifting lower. You have pressure on wet blue prices, they're drifting lower. A lot of unsold hides in Brazil, a lot of hides going to a landfill. It's just really no change in that situation down there. In Australia, really no change as well. You have harvest numbers that are starting to drift lower because cattle supplies are getting tighter. That's good news for the people selling hides because they're struggling to get their production liquidated each week. Feedlot hides might be able to get moved, a little better quality hides, maybe on the tails of a firmer U.S. market, but cows remain a problem. So as far as this week, we have our suspicions that you probably will not see a lot of offers by the producers this week. Everyone's going to be trying to play it very close to the vest. I think guys are going to want to hang onto their hides to be able to sell them when they visit their customers. And as far as prices, if prices are going to change, I think big packer prices go slightly higher before they go lower. I think there's a much better chance we see higher prices. So keep that in mind. Cows, it doesn't look like things are going to get any better, and it's going to continue to be a struggle. So that's it for now. Ken Maxfield, the Hide Guy. Check out my website, www.themaxfieldreport.com. I offer free 14-day trials. Give it a try. See what you think. Until next week, this is your Hide Guy signing off, and we'll see you again.